Harbinger League came alongside the Fall of Oriath expansion, which introduced Acts 6 through 10, as well as bringing to life gods we had only heard about until this point. While Harbinger resembled past leagues like Breach or Beyond, a portal opens up, baddies come out, loot is obtained, there was one striking difference. These interdimensional beings and all the items associated with them were depicted in a new pictographic language created by GGG. Now, this is strange. Even interdimensional nightmare beings like Chayula had names we could read, and flavor text on their items. They didn't exactly appear like, "Hey, I'm Chayula, my friends call me Chalupa, and I love dreams," but they were put into context by text associated with them. But now, with Harbinger, we get these even more foreign beings because we can't even read the gosh dang text telling us anything about them. And GGG was quite proud of themselves. They challenged players to decipher the symbols to learn how and why these beings were invading Rayclast. They even gave us a couple freebie symbol translations, as well as letting players know that the story of their journey to Rayclast was told in the order of belt, mask, quiver, shield, staff, sword text. A few people back in the day created a pretty amazing Google Doc, mostly using the names of individual Harbingers and the skills they're associated with to figure out quite a few of these symbols. I will say this document helped me significantly. Admittedly, I spent about a day going full Ralphie from A Christmas Story trying to decode this on my own. While the literal interpretation of the Harbinger story was mostly deciphered in this Google Doc, it missed one big element: the context. The symbols had been pretty much decoded, but no official agreement upon the meaning, such as who is the god, and thus who do the Harbingers worship, was reached. But with the release of the new upgraded Harbinger uniques in Harvest League, there seems to be more to this story than was originally decided upon. And I think some of the new items, this second part of the story, help illuminate some remaining questions about the first story. So I'll link a document I made with every symbol translated below if you'd like to follow along while I go through my interpretation. First, let's establish some basics. All of the symbols in rounded brackets are concept or word symbols. This means whatever symbol is contained in the brackets is its own unique word. The smaller symbols between these words are used as syntax. They have general purposes but are not concretely one concept. For example, the symbol with arrows pointing towards each other vertically can be a possessive S, is, of, while the singular diamond can be and or was. So there's room for interpretation within these, while the bracketed word symbols are a bit more fixed. The two symbols GGG confirmed were the symbol for the god of domination and the symbol for the beast. With this in mind, I present to you my full interpretation of the first story presented in Harbinger League. I'll put the individual words under each symbol, but I'll write the story in a more grammatically correct way. God has the skill to become the master of maps. God has the skill to become the master of time. God's followers are empowered by God's skills. When the time of the beast began, God was weakened and fled. God's followers saw their God imprisoned, or God's followers have imprisoned their God. God's followers have divided God's arcane power amongst themselves. God is the master of attacks. God is still imprisoned. God's followers divided God's mastery of attacks amongst themselves. When the beast's time is done, God will use his rage to escape from imprisonment. God's mind will not be broken. God is enraged over his imprisonment. God's power is hungry to expand. God's prison remains not broken. God's power to expand becomes a hunger for God's followers' powers. God's followers have mastery of attacks. God's followers have the skill to expand. God's followers became focused on descending. The followers are focused on Reclast. Let's break that down. The god that the Harbingers follow was weakened when the beast was created. Then, somehow, either by others or the followers themselves, their god was imprisoned. The Harbingers took powers from their god while he was imprisoned, and this made the god even angrier. Their god now wanted to take its powers back from the Harbingers. The Harbingers then decided to come to Reclast to descend and escape their god and use their new powers. At first, I toyed with the idea that the god in question was Kitava. Kitava and Harbingers were introduced at the same time, and Kitava is the god of endless hunger, and hunger is represented in the story. The god's hunger to expand, and his hunger for the power of his followers. But there's a few major issues. Kitava was initially imprisoned in the underworld by Hinekora, before the beast was created. And after the beast was created, all the gods of our known world were put to sleep, not weakened or imprisoned. In addition, it seems like this god is still imprisoned or restrained after the beast's time is done. The death of the beast released Kitava onto Reclast. Furthermore, we know that Kitava is a Karui god. We had seen long before this league or expansion mentions of Kitava in the lore. Kaum believed Kitava was the cause of evil in the land. If Kitava had Harbingers as followers, there would likely be more reference to this. The Harbingers also use portals to enter Reclast, which seems more otherworldly than godlike, by which I mean more similar to Breach than to Reclast-based gods. The Harbingers also seem to be fleeing to Reclast, which, if they're trying to escape their god, doesn't make much sense. The beast's time being over brought Kitava back to Reclast, so they wouldn't want to be arriving on Reclast to escape Kitava. But then I thought, what if this refers to a being that we didn't meet in Fall of Oriath? What if it refers to a being we were going to meet soon? One that certainly also has a desire to expand, one that comes from another dimension. What if their god is the Elder? The Harbinger's god was not imprisoned by the beast's creation. Instead, it was weakened, which led to its imprisonment. The Elder was imprisoned by the Watchers of Decay, using the blade Starforge to seal his body in stone. But his mind remained free. This is supported by the line, God's mind remained unbroken. If we look at the Shaper's Book of Memories, he describes the Elder as a shade, a mind that has been trapped outside of its body. The shade is also able to teach Valdo his thaumaturgical, perhaps arcane, powers, but requires someone to remove the blade from his stone body to be free. While the timeline might not make sense initially, I looked deeper into it. The Watchers of Decay were apparently started by a god speaking to a woman who had lost her son to the Elder, and this god taught her about the Elder and his powers. This means that the Watchers learned about the Elder before the beast's creation. However, it wasn't until the Order of the Jinn that the Starforge was created to seal the Elder and split his mind and body. This happened after the Eternal Empire was founded, so after the beast's creation, but way before we destroy the beast. And this is also supported by the god being enraged at his imprisonment, but not being freed by the beast being slain. It wasn't until Valdo Caesarius recreated the Watcher's map device, and High Templar Venarius went inside, that the Elder was free. And even then, the Elder was free within the Atlas, or as Valdo put it, his pocket dimension. So the Harbingers escaping their god by going to Reclast would make sense. In addition, the Elder's ultimate goal is to spread his decay across everything. He also seems to eat memories, especially those of children. So the themes of expansion and hunger also fit the Elder. Xana does have a line that says, "The Elder is not a lord unto itself." It serves a greater master, a greater purpose, which some people interpret as him not being a god. I would argue that the Elder isn't really a god in the sense of gods we've seen on Reclast, mortal beings who ascended to godhood. He is a manifestation of this decay that wants to spread. Voldo writes in his memories that the Elder came to Reclast out of hunger, feasting on children's imagination, attempting to cultivate something, to sustain and birth forth its true goal, the oblivion from outside time and space, the decay. We see in the first lines of the original story that this god is the master of maps, which could also mean space, and that he is the master of time. This matches the decay's oblivion from outside time and space. Also, when their god is imprisoned, his power is hungry to expand, not the god. That could mean the force within him, this goal, this power, the decay, is pushing him when the physical manifestation is locked in place. Voldo writes, the Elder's form is trapped in stone, but its agency runs free. The div card called the Messenger might support this theory. Players had worked out that this symbol refers to beings or Harbingers, as it is present in every Harbinger's name. For example, the boss of Beachhead map is named the being that leads God's followers. My rough translation of the messenger text is, a being not broken goes to the best mind of Reclast. The being wants to move to ascend into our realm. The being is divided by God. The device on Reclast will bring fire and destruction to the maps. If I'm anywhere near correct, this could be the story of Venarius asking Voldo to recreate the Watcher's device, wanting to talk to the Elder, and being summarily devoured by the Elder. Venarius forced Voldo to bring him to the Elder by threatening to kill Xana. And once Venarius was in the Elder's dreamlands, he offered to free the Elder in exchange for power, of course. Venarius removed the Starforge, releasing the Elder, who immediately killed his guardsmen, feasted on his memories, but importantly left him alive, and Voldo fled. Voldo broke his original map device, but as we know, it is eventually restored and used by us. One more translation before I move on to the new story. The Beachhead map translates to, God's followers have divided their attacks and broken onto Reclast. This likely refers to the Stargate, their method of transportation from their dimension at the center of Beachhead, as the initial entry point or portal onto Reclast. If the Elder could teach Voldo to create a map device, maybe the arcane powers the Harbingers took from the Elder included the power to create such portals. Something important to consider is that this story was introducing a new character or event, the Elder, from the upcoming expansion. So in a way, these Harbingers are not only telling the story of their past, but of our future. Harbinger means a person or thing signaling the approach of another, so their story alluding to the introduction of the Elder fits quite well. With that in mind, could the new story told by the Harbingers be signaling important events to come in PoE? The new story told on the recent Harbinger unique upgrades includes new symbols not previously seen, and thus not previously decoded for me to work with. I'm assuming the new story is told in the same order: belt, mask, quiver, shield, staff, sword. But I still needed to decipher these new symbols from scratch. However, the final text on the Surging Thoughts sword, so the last part of the new story, is what ultimately led me to believe Elder is their god of domination. I'll break down why first, and then go through the story. This new syntax, with the symbol for negative or un, is now in emphasizing brackets. This must change the meaning somehow. Based on its use in other pieces of the new story, I suspected this might mean is new. So the last line of this text seems to say, the new god is blank. I considered this for a while, and then realized there is one new character who has been transformed, and is arguably the new Elder, Cyrus. For a very brief summary of the Conquerors of Atlas expansion lore, Xana had taken 5 exiles with her into the Atlas to find her father, Valdo, the Shaper, to defeat the Elder and stop his expansion. When they fought the Elder, trying to trap, maybe imprison, him in a device, Cyrus had to jump onto the Elder and push him into the device to finish the job. Cyrus disappeared, apparently also trapped in the device that sealed away the Elder. Then, after some time, he reappeared, changed. I recommend watching my video on the Conquerors for a more thorough story, but let's get to the translation. Please note, I'm not as sure on some of these symbols and translations, but with the rough idea of the story of Elder and Cyrus, here's what I came up with. God has escaped his imprisonment. The followers' escape is ending. God is seeking arcane power from the followers. God's followers are free. They have escaped to Reclast and split up. The followers have escaped from their God. The followers have broken from their God. The followers have divided into new bodies. God is broken. God is broken, but God is not done. God's power is not ending. The followers must unite. God's body has changed. God's mind has changed. This new God is not the old God. The followers had divided over their God. They will move to this new imprisonment and will plan an attack. This new God is Cyrus. Here's how I deciphered some symbols. As mentioned, I inferred the last symbol because Cyrus has now been possessed by or has absorbed the Elder, making him a new Elder. For the symbol free, it is only used on the Tempest's liberation, so I assumed that symbol means liberation or freedom. For changed, it is only used on the yielding mortality. So again, I inferred X is blank to mean X is yielding or changing. For body or possibly pieces, the symbol itself resembles the symbol for being or Harbinger, but split apart. This initially made me think pieces, but contextually body makes more sense. The symbol for ending looks like done, but with an arrow pointing to it, making me think it's a direction towards done, thus ending. Unite, I am the least certain of. It looks vaguely like the symbol for followers, which I see as 3 pairs of praying hands. It looks like they are moving towards a center. This one could have a different meaning, so let me know if you have any other ideas. While there's certainly room for interpretation, here's my summary of this new story. The Harbingers had escaped to Reclast to become their own beings and not be attacked by their god. They spread out over Reclast to exert their own power. But the Elder, now free, began seeking them. We know the Elder was trying to get to Reclast. That is why we, and the past Conquerors, try to help Xana stop the Elder's spread. But then, when Cyrus pushes Elder into the Cosmic Arcana, the Harbingers can tell that their god is broken. But the Elder's powers have not ceased to be. The Elder became something new. Perhaps the Harbingers traveled back to the maps to discover this new imprisonment, the Cosmic Arcana. Maybe that is how Cyrus, now possessed or become one with the Elder, was released. Or maybe the new imprisonment is the Atlas itself, which Xana tried to trap the Conquerors inside. Maybe the Harbingers, sensing their god is now a mortal being, plan to attack Cyrus. If the Elder was immortal before, perhaps he has yielded or changed into this new mortal form, so the Harbingers could defeat or attack Cyrus. The Elder had wanted to reclaim their powers for himself, but was then shattered by the Conquerors. While the Elder's will is immortal, his body has now yielded to mortality, and this may have given the Harbingers thoughts to surge against him. Could this be foreshadowing some new event? The Harbingers either joining forces with or attacking Cyrus? Again, I didn't have much to go on for this second story, but I think this could be the intended interpretation. It wouldn't make sense for the Harbingers to be connected to a god we know from Reclast, as their language is too foreign, and they escaped to Reclast, not from it. While they're too ancient to worship the Shaper, they are also too mystical and interdimensional to be tied to Kitava. It could be some other god we don't know much about. I toyed with the idea of this last symbol being all because of the crown looking similar. But Cyrus also has a spiky crown. All is blue, so he has that going for him, but he doesn't seem to be a god. Whether I'm correct or not, I hope we can get some more information about the Harbingers. What do they want? Why do they throw shards of loot at me like they're making it rain pennies? And why the hell did I spend so much time deciphering these symbols? Thank you so much for watching. It's your interdimensional being Noodle. Sorry for the long delay in videos. Obviously this took a bit, but I'm also not really sure what topics to cover next. So if you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Check the description for credits for art and the Google Doc I referenced, as well as my own Google Doc deciphering the symbols. Thanks as always to my amazing patrons. You keep this crazy train going. I think I've officially gone insane, but I still hope that you stay sane, Exile.